Hello and welcome to Dugout Debrief. I'm your host, Chris DeLuca. This is Boone Broadcasting's one, first, and only baseball-centric podcast. And I'm once again happy to be talking about something I care so much about on the best up-and-coming sports YouTube channel on the internet, on social media, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, everything in general. We're everywhere. We got something for everybody on this channel, ladies and gentlemen, not just baseball, not just the NBA, not just the NFL, but we got pro wrestling. We even got movie reviews now. So we got Sean Lucas there. He's doing a great job over there. But with that being said, we're going to go get into the news because I never waste anyone's time here. And we're going to go start with some news that we talked about a little bit earlier, about 3-4 weeks ago with Tropicana Field after Hurricane Milton. It was incredibly damaged with a roof being ripped off. And the big thing that I want to note to you guys is it's not like a normal an indoor-outdoor field where it has some drainage ability. So it's not like a stadium like Minute Maid Park or Rogers Center. While it may have indoor qualities, it has some drainage technology. Tropicana Field is a fully indoor stadium, so they had absolutely no drainage technology. So the water just sat on top of the field once it went through, which was terrible. And obviously, we are still recovering. Tampa, Florida, and the whole area is still recovering from the hurricane. And we send the best wishes to them and to Western North Carolina as well, even all these weeks later. But with that being said, the city of St. Petersburg estimates the repairs will cost $55 million and won't be fixed until 2026. And the estimation for when the new stadium will be built somewhere between 2028 and 2030. So the city of St. Petersburg has to make the decision if they will go and contribute to rebuilding or essentially rebuilding, remodeling, I guess, Tropicana Field, or if they're going to just let the Rays play at a spring training facility, which is becoming more and more like the option that the Rays are going to have to take. It's looking like they're going to have to play at either the Yankees or the Philadelphia Phillies spring training facility as opposed to Tropicana Field. So we will very likely see the last game at Tropicana Field, or we have seen, rather, past tense, unfortunately, the last game at Tropicana Field before they get that new stadium. Montreal, Oakland, I think, are just not feasible. I don't think Major League Baseball wants to go and touch on those. They're pretty touchy subjects right now, especially Oakland. And I feel very bad for the Rays. They deserve to play in MLB Stadium because they're an MLB quality team. They put the product out there. I'm not going to get into the fan base. I'm not going to get into the attendance because I don't think that's really their fault. I think a lot of that had to do with stadium location and less with interest. Tropicana Field had a pretty not favorable location, kind of in the middle of nowhere, St. Petersburg. There was only one way to get there. I think a downtown stadium will do them a lot better. And I think if they play at Steinbrenner Field, they should sell out at least most games. So a smaller venue, I think, will do good for them. An outdoor venue, too. So we'll see how that goes. But $55 million is a lot of money for a team that's not going to play there for more than 4 years. So with that being said, Clayton McCulloch was hired as the Marlins' new skipper and former Dodgers first base coach, a World Series champion, and coming from a winning mentality, going to a not so winning mentality. The Marlins have kind of been a island, to say the least. A lot of front office issues recently, and there's a lot to be fixed. It all depends on how much ownership is willing to go and work with the lower management, with the coaches individually. Let's be honest with the Marlins. The blow-up did not work. When they traded Stanton and Yelich and Ozuna away, it did not come out the way that they thought it would. They have 3 prospects in the top 100. That's really bad. Their farm system's beat up. Their 2 best players were Otto Lopez and Xavier Edwards this year, who had barely 2. I think one had 2.6 and the other had an even 2 WAR. Not fantastic. Their pitching was terrible. Nobody in the starting rotation was below a 3 ERA. No consistent starter looked really good, and they traded away their only good reliever in Tanner Scott to San Diego. And the long-term effects of that deal we will see. Clayton has a lot of work cut out for him, coming from a team that just won the World Series to a team that, if you ask me, is a bloop and a blast from being as bad as the White Sox. I think that they will probably lose at least 110 next year. They lost 100 even this year, and they kind of batted above their average, just using baseball references here because it's dugout debrief. But yeah, Marlins are going to be bad. I definitely understand why McCulloch would take that position because you never want to turn down a manager position, obviously. But the Marlins have a lot of work to do if they want to come back in that competitive NL East that's going to remain competitive. So the best of luck to him. Thank you for all the work that you did in Los Angeles. Thank you for the contributions that you made to this World Series championship. So with that being said, we're going to keep going through news. We got a lot this week, and we're going to continue to have a lot because it's the off season. The hot stove will be heating up before you know it. Hey, next thing you know, it'll be Thanksgiving, Christmas, winter meetings. Next thing you know, it'll be Valentine's Day and spring training. We're hoping we're pushing along. Roki Sasaki was posted as a free agent. I probably just butchered his name, so my apologies if I did. By the Shiba Lot Marines of the Nippon Professional Baseball League. Sorry if I butchered anything there. The highly touted Japanese prospect is set to make a lot of money. And there's one interesting thing about him is he is planning on playing for a smaller market team, apparently. So he's not really looking at teams like the Dodgers, the Yankees, or even the Cubs, the Braves, or Padres, just these bigger market teams. So he has some injury concerns I've seen. He has a nasty, nasty fastball. But I'm interested to see if he's one of the first foreign prospects you've seen that's prioritizing being like, hey, I want to play for a smaller market team. Maybe the Pirates, maybe the Royals, maybe the Orioles. I think that those teams could all kind of jump out of the woodworks and go for him. So continuing through news, Travis d'Arnaud signs with the Angels in a 2-year, $12 million contract. And this is a very Angels move. I respect it because they're trying to actively win games in a relatively winnable division. They're trying to basically come up from nothing and do well. They had the worst season they ever had this past season. And I give Artie Moreno that. At least they're trying. They have a good manager behind them. Ron Washington is a fantastic manager, and I think he fits that team very, very well. Like we said, it's a weak division, and the Angels have nowhere to go but up. They got Jorge Soler earlier, and I think that they might go and try and make a big move. It wouldn't surprise me. So final little pieces of news here, final 2 pieces roughly. A bunch of award finalists were announced. The award winners will be announced next week, so we'll go cover them once we start our team breakdowns next week. So yeah, I'm just going to go over a couple of them. I already did my award predictions, but I'll go, now that we got the finalists, I'll just kind of give a general, overview of it. Manager of the year for the National League finalists is Carlos Mendoza, Pat Murphy, and Mike Shildt. I think all of them make a very good candidacy, but mainly the first 2. I think Mike Shildt, I think he's a fantastic manager, but nobody expected the Padres to be bad this year. That just wasn't a thing. Carlos Mendoza took a team that was projected to finish in the middle top of the National League East to a NLCS and put up a fight against an incredible Dodgers team. I think that's a definite candidacy, but I'm going to have to give it to Pat Murphy. And I'm giving it to Murphy because the Brewers were kind of left dead in the water this year, but they went 93-69. And I think he deserves all the credit in the world for getting this team that was banged up going into the year to win that division that was basically projected to go to the former manager's new team, the Chicago Cubs, with Craig Counsell. I think Murphy, for how he got a team that was not expected to be there to make it to the playoffs, well, I think that they were very disappointing in the playoffs against the New York Mets. I think that he deserves it overall for just getting that team there. American League Manager of the Year is pretty much just as tight. between AJ Hitch, Matt Quarto, and Stephen Vogt. Another tough one. I think all three deserve a argument. AJ Hitch and Stephen Vogt, especially. I mean, if you really think about it, Cleveland did have a lot of pieces, still does, but they really made a run to the ALCS with essentially only one power hitter. And kind of a very balanced starting rotation. That was the weakest link, was the starting rotation, because the bullpen was fantastic with Gaddis and Clase and Cade Smith. Well, they might have had some shortfalls in the playoffs. They deserve to get where they got to. Next is AJ Hitch, and the Tigers were projected to lose probably 90 games, and they made the playoffs. And honestly, they had a chance to make the ALCS or even the World Series if they could have maintained the rate that they had. And I think if it went Kerry Carpenter's way, they probably would have beat the Dodgers. I'm going to give it to AJ Hitch. I think he deserves it simply because who thought the Tigers were going to make the playoffs? Who thought the Tigers were even going to win more than 60 games, 70 games? They did it. They did it, and I think it was a fantastic year for them, and we have a lot more in store for these Tigers. So with that being said, we're going to go move on to Cy Young, the Cy Young Award, and we have a reliever in the candidacy. Wow. We have Emmanuel Clase, Seth Lugo, and Tarek Skubal. And I want Clase to win it. I know he had a terrible, terrible ALCS, a terrible playoff in general. I think it's Skubal. We've already talked about this previously when we did our word prediction. I think Skubal pretty much takes it. And then for the National League, it's Sale, Skeens, and Wheeler. Sale, again, my Cy Young picks have not changed from my previous episode when I did my word predictions. You can cite that for all my reasoning. I don't think any of that changed. Moving on to MVP, we got for the National League, we got Francisco Lindor, Starling Marte, and Shohei Ohtani. And I really, really want to give it to Lindor. I really wanted to find a way because I pondered on this for quite a while. Ohtani still leads in all major categories, even games played, man. It's so hard to not give it to Ohtani. I mean, 50 for 50 season, just unbeatable. I'm going to have to give it to Ohtani. Starling Marte was an interesting one there. He also had a fantastic year, but I want to find a reason to give it to Lindor. The only argument I can really make is Lindor did more to win it individually for his team than Ohtani did. I mean, Ohtani was amazing, but in the playoffs, he was not fantastic. Lindor stayed fantastic in the playoffs, and he did more to get his team to where they made it to the NLCS. Next, we have the American League MVP, still not changed from my pick before. So it's Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Bobby Witt Jr. Those are the exact three that I thought would be a candidacy, and I'm going to stick with the exact same person that I thought is going to win it, Aaron Judge. 58 home runs. His only holdback was he was atrocious in the postseason, especially the World Series. He was insane. He was terrible, straight up in the World Series. Jason can elaborate on that. Definitely more than I can, which, by the way, you will see Jason on the show, the host of Three from Deep, the co-host of Sideline Savants. You will see him on Dugout Debrief. We'll have our first guest here within the next 3 or so weeks to discuss the New York Yankees, to discuss the AL East. We're still in discussion with that, but I'm going to go give his hero, his man, Aaron Judge, for the American League MVP. And to wrap this up, we have both Rookies of the Year. So for the National League, the finalists are a lot more competitive than the American, let's just say. Jackson Chirino, Jackson Merrill, so 2 Jacksons, and then Paul Skeens. And we've discussed this again, as I've been kind of reiterating this over and over. I think that Merrill should get it. I think Skeens gets it because it's better for the game. Jackson Merrill was fantastic. He had a fantastic postseason, but they don't take the postseason into consideration with these. So I'm going to give it to Paul Skeens. I mean, he was ridiculous. He had one of the best rookie performances a pitcher has ever had. So National League Rookie of the Year, objectively, is Paul Skeens. American League is kind of, I mean, Colton Cowser, Luis Gil, and Austin Wells. That's the finalist. And I'm not going to say anything bad about these players. I'm still going to say Cowser gets it simply because he, Gil started solid, but finished with a 3-something ERA. Austin Wells had a solid postseason, but didn't really pop off in the regular season. I mean, he had a solid end of the season, but again, I think that the anti-catcher's bias, which is an epidemic that we've been seeing in Major League Baseball recently, will hold Austin Wells back from getting the Rookie of the Year. So I'm going to give it to Cowser, and we'll go see how this ages, because I think the award should be dropped by next Thursday. I don't have the exact day. I just read on Twitter that it's going to be sometime next week. So like I said, we have a lengthy news segment. It's almost been 15 minutes. By the time we get done with here, it'll be even more. Juan Soto, he has a bunch of suitors. A lot of people have a crush on this guy. A lot of teams have a crush on this guy, and I can't blame them. He is projected at 630 million for 14 years. And that's pretty close to Ohtani's 700 million. It's pretty darn close indeed, and 2 years longer. The 26-year-old would be under contract through his age 40 season. And by the way, he won a World Series at 19, I think he was, something like that, 18, 19 in 2019 when he was with Washington. And, look, a lot of people have been saying that he is going to go for the money over talent. And I have to respectfully, partially disagree. I think that he is going to go for talent because he wants to win a World Series. Do I think he's going to go for a team like the Dodgers that is going to be forced to pay him under simply because it's not realistic to pay that many people that much money? That's not physically possible. Like you'd have to, you'd probably have to call Fort Knox and get the whole gold reserve to afford him and Ohtani and Yamamoto and Will Smith on the same team and Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts. I do not think Dodgers are going to get him. I don't really want to get him, to be honest. I'm kind of happier if we just sign Teoscar Hernandez. But again, this isn't a Dodger-centric podcast. We are discussing Juan Soto. So, yeah, this is by a mile probably going to be the second biggest deal in MLB history behind Shohei Ohtani, or maybe even more, depending on how market value looks, depending on how some other outfielders sign too. Again, this is it's a market value that's set by the year. It's very similar to the NFL in that sense. I think he wants another World Series. He has one in 2019. He almost got one this year. He came pretty darn close to this one this year. But he also wants to get paid. So the main contenders so far, the teams he's visited, which I think is interesting. It's almost like you're playing college football 25 where you're scheduling visits, and trying to schedule the latest possible one against the best possible team because it gets you the most bonuses. So I almost feel like MLB teams are going to go take the same strategy. But yeah, the teams he's meeting with as of the recording this video are the Toronto Blue Jays, the Boston Red Sox, the Tampa Bay Rays, and New York Mets and New York Yankees. And where does he sign with? Big question. I'm going to go do this right now. I'm going to go give you my prediction. And I think it's going to be New York Yankees. I think he's going to sign with the Yankees. I think that it's going to be between them and the Mets. And it's going to be close, but I think he wants to stay in New York simply because they are the team that is willing and has the ability to pay him the most money and also win that title. And that's what he wants. He wants another title. New York, despite the fact that they might have some locker room issues, I think that he's willing to sacrifice that because really, think about it. Boston is not in a position to compete. They looked a lot better than I thought they would. But while they might be a better run organization than New York currently, are they as talented as New York? How far out? Boston is still a few years out, and I think Juan Soto wants to win now, especially with how good the Dodgers are, especially with how rapidly the National League is increasing in talent. Toronto has been disappointing year in and year out, and these guys are starting to hit a point where they're going to have to sign them. So, Toronto is a sketchy one. I think out of all of those, I'd rank them third. I'd say Toronto's third. I'd say it's the Yankees number one, then the Mets, then Toronto, then Boston, then Tampa, out of the teams that he's supposedly visiting with. Toronto could maybe come out of the woodworks. I'd say they're the upset pick, but I wouldn't put money on it. After that, I think the Mets are going to go put a bunch of money into him. I think they're going to probably give him the biggest offer. And I think it's going to be a close but no dice situation for the Mets. Yeah, but overall, I think Soto goes to the Yankees. I think he's the best fit. I think that they're the most competitive team, and I think he fits in with them. I think him and Judge can kind of be a Bash Brothers for a uh, long time. But yeah, with that being said, this is our season breakdown episode. Not sure if I mentioned that actually at the beginning of the show, but I'll make sure to put that in the title. We got a lot to cover with this, and we're already at 20 minutes. So, geez, this is going to be one of the longer episodes of my recent time. Juan Soto. What we're doing here, rather, speaking of Juan Soto, what we're doing right here is we're just going to go through some crazy stuff that happened. And this is kind of be a rapid fire, as Aaron Schneider would say on the Gridiron Address. This is a rapid fire. Juan Soto breaks the record for the most walks before his 26th birthday with 669. Another thing that makes him valuable. Players don't draw walks like he does anymore. Straight up. We just talked about that, how fantastic Juan Soto is and how much money he's going to fetch. Another Yankee, Aaron Judge, becomes the first hitter to reach 300 home run, fastest hitter to reach 300 home runs, doing so in 955 games against the Chicago White Sox on August 14th, by the way. Shohei Ohtani broke the home run for a Japanese-born baseball player. He's only in his seventh year, which is incredible. With 167, breaking the legend Hideki Matsui's record. And again, it's just insane how quickly he did this, considering Matsui was in the league for quite some time. But a lot of the Japanese players who are really good were not really power hitters. Ichiro is still Ichiro is probably the second best Japanese player ever, and he was not a home run hitter. Definitely an average hitter, probably the best leadoff hitter of my generation, best leadoff hitter since Ricky Henderson, but not a power hitter. Ohtani has kind of got it all. And speaking of Ohtani, he joined the 30 for 30 club. He joined the 40 for 40 club, and then he joined the 50 for 50 club. And it was just an insane year for this man. 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases plus is just totally unprecedented. I'll never forget that game against the Marlins when he went 6 for 6 and just when he broke the record. It was ridiculous. And he basically lifted his WAR probably by 1.5, but just in one game. But yeah, again, we're just kind of blowing through this right here. Here's one of the weirder ones, one of the more fun ones. Danny Jansen, catcher, became the first player in Major League history to play for two teams in the same game. So he was on the Toronto Blue Jays when the game against the Red Sox was suspended due to weather. And I think this game was in May, I think. And then it was made up in August. So between then, he was traded in July to the Boston Red Sox. And when the game was made up, he was in the starting lineup for both teams. So he started at catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, and then he moved over to the Boston Red Sox dugout. So he went back to his former team and then to his current team. And that was just something that was wild. I don't think we'll ever see that. That was just kind of a crazy circumstance. And it's one of those things that you never really think about happening. And you kind of wonder if that ever does happen. But it's happened once. We might see it again. We might not. Who knows? Moving on, Luis Arraez became the first player to win a batting title with three different teams, and that man will never win an MVP because of his power and the day that we play in, unfortunately. I think Luis Arraez deserves to be in a candidacy for an MVP, but unfortunately, he's just too much of a one-dimensional player for the modern stance. I think that he's got a lot and he's worth a lot of money, but unfortunately, his lack of power is going to keep him from signing that mega deal and contending for an MVP. There were a few no-hitters, 3 solo ones to be exact. Ronald Blanco for Houston, and then 2 Padres, Dylan Cease and Blake Snell, both through, one former Padre, one current Padre, one former Padre. So Dylan Cease for the Padres, and then Blake Snell for the San Francisco Giants, who is another hot commodity that we've not talked about much yet in the free agency market. There was also a combined no-hitter between Shota Imanaga, Nate Pearson, and Porter Hodge for the Chicago Cubs. I believe that was against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I feel like there are a lot more no-hitters this year, but there really weren't. There were only 4 total, 1 combined. Combined no-hitters have really kind of become a thing nobody really cares about, which is for better or for worse. I mean, I count them, yeah. I think when it's this incredible bullpen performance, it's something that's really cool, especially if it's against a really hot team. But overall, I'll turn my TV to it, but I'm not going to go and run home from wherever I am to go watch it. The solo no-hitters, Blanco's was pretty dominant. Dylan Cease's was dominant. Not like anybody got to watch Dylan Cease's because it was on Apple TV Plus, which nobody has, because why would you want to have a streaming service that doesn't have any good shows on it and shows one mediocre baseball game a week? That's an argument for another day. The Colorado Rockies set the major league record for the most consecutive games to start a season trailing, with 30 games in a row in May 1st to be exact, against the Miami Marlins, the aforementioned Miami Marlins. So two not fantastic National League teams breaking records that we don't really want to have. The Rockies we talked about them last episode, I believe. They're one of the most directionless teams, one of the more forgotten about teams in professional sports. I mean, if you ask me, it's between them and the Buffalo Sabres, of just teams that you kind of have to remind people that they exist. And it's nothing against them personally, because I think they're really fun. They both got really fun uniforms too. And they both have some cool moments in their history, but both need to kind of totally redo their strategy, to say the least. Finally, when it comes to teams/players, the Chicago White Sox broke the loss record with 121. We already talked about this, so we're not going to elaborate much on it. They tied the record for the most consecutive losses with 21 in May against Oakland. Overall, they finished 51 and a half games behind. And this is the definition of what happens when a owner completely gives up on a team. Jerry Reinsdorf is open to selling the team, supposedly, and we just got to hope that he actually does, because from the things I've heard just through baseball social media, he's very much not a metrics guy, very much not a guy who is into the stats, and he believes in the old school ways, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the issue is it's 2024, about to be 2025, ladies and gentlemen. You can't stay back. You got to hire people. If you don't understand it, you got to hire people that do. It's perfectly fine if you don't, but you got to hire people that do, and you got to accept it. And if you don't understand it, and you don't understand it at an advanced level, you can't have anything to do with the leadership of the team, in the locker room, in the coaching staff, management. You cannot. You can sit there and manage it financially. That's perfectly fine. Sit in your castle, manage it financially, Jerry, but don't be involved at the club level. Simply don't. Team will be better when it's sold. Going into more general topics to kind of start the process of wrapping this up. Bally Sports, owned by Diamond Sports Group, went bankrupt. Set off a media frenzy. FanDuel Sports Network bought them over, so we'll see how that goes. I have a lot of mixed feelings on sports betting being a one thing, I guess, hegemony with the sport itself. I kind of have mixed feelings with that. You can't go watch Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN without seeing ESPN bet, ESPN bet, ESPN bet. And in no way is this an advertisement for them, because I don't want to advertise for them whatsoever or promote it. But having casinos and online casinos, physical and online casinos, own sports broadcasting is not, I think, exactly what you want to do, because it incentivizes players to do the wrong thing. I think it also incentivizes fans to just not care about watching the game and enjoying the game. I do think that betting adds some fun to it, but I don't think it really should be, oh yeah, the FanDuel Sports Network. Okay, well, I don't care about the FanDuel Sports Network. I want to watch my team, XYZ. That's what I want to watch. I want to see so-and-so sports Chicago, so-and-so sports Bay Area, so-and-so, SNLA, for example, Sportsnet Los Angeles. Just that's what we want to see. We don't want to see FanDuel Sports Tampa. Nobody wants that, I don't think, except advertisers. But again, there's nothing we can do. The only bright side is we still have the local broadcast, and that's really all that matters to me personally, because I've seen arguments from people saying, oh, we should just get rid of them. I know Manfred kind of wanted to do that. So the only bright side with FanDuel buying these networks is we don't have to worry about local channels being dismantled and replaced with some national Apple TV type thing, which would really, really not be great for the game. Speaking of advertising and big money, the MLB started wearing advertisements on their uniforms. These teams include the Orioles, Cubs, Royals, Dodgers, Phillies, Pirates, Giants, and Rangers. And I think pretty much all 30 teams by probably the end of the next few years will be wearing them. I mean, it's all about the money. And that's kind of going to be our concluding topic. I got one more thing I want to talk about. But we're going to be talking about big money to go finish out the season breakdown. But one final topic before we finish off is a major uniform controversy at the beginning of the year. Nike and Fanatics bought over the rights to the MLB uniforms, and they were terrible. They had transparent pants. If you had a sweating issue, like many players, including Austin Hedges, who we love to talk about him on this program, had a sweating issue, and it can kind of create a bad situation, especially when you're on national television. If you know, you know. They ripped the jerseys, looked like they were taped on. I mean, heck, I'm wearing a hockey jersey right now, and this is the way that they used to be. I mean, stitched in like that. And that's the way that they should be. Like I said, not a great example because I'm wearing an older hockey jersey. I'm wearing a Reebok one. So this is back before they were made like they are now. So maybe not the best example, but overall, bad look in the MLB. Luckily, Nike fixed this, and the jerseys are much better. I'm sure we've seen the improvements. You guys have seen the improvements. I bought a new Nike jersey here back in August, I believe. I bought a Dodger jersey that was stitched, very nice, well made. So Nike at least did fix their wrongs, which is very good. But anyway, final topic of the season breakdown as we hit 31 minutes here, which is a little bit longer than I normally go. That's okay because it's our season breakdown. This is a crazy, crazy year. I mean, we saw a lot of history. Finally, spending money works. Wow, that's crazy. Spending money works in professional sports. It's almost like it drives the world. Money was proven to be the key to success as Los Angeles Dodgers, who have the 5th largest payroll, defeated the 2nd largest payroll in Major League Baseball, the New York Yankees, in 5 games. We've done the World Series breakdown. This isn't a World Series breakdown. But the only teams with the payroll in the 20s to make the postseason are Detroit and Cleveland. That is proof that spending money will win you a World Series. That's about it. Most of the top 10 teams made the World Series, made the World Series playoffs. We'll say, which go say like Stanley Cup playoffs, but made the playoffs outside of the Rangers and then the Cubs, I think, maybe one other. Rangers and Cubs, the first ones that come off the top of my head, and I'm thinking the top 10 highest payrolls. And the Rangers had a down year. They were banged up, and the Cubs just did not look well. But look, spending money wins you World Series, and teams that want to win a World Series need to start spending money. They need to start spending more money. New York probably will become number 1 here soon if they can pay Juan Soto. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's my season breakdown. If you have anything else that I missed, I just kind of went through the general stuff top of my head. If you have anything that I missed, please put it in the comments. If I missed anything, call me out. I just kind of talked about what I found fascinating. There's a bunch of other things that I just didn't have time to put in because I generally try not to go too crazy long. But ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our trivia question. And I love writing these. I think about them. I go to trivia at least once or twice a week in my town, and I think it's really fun. So last week's trivia question was, what is the name of the stadium that the Pirates and Steelers both played at for quite some time? I didn't give any years. I thought that would give it away. So 1, 2, 3. Football heads might know it. I'm a Steelers fan. It is Three Rivers Stadium. The Pittsburgh Pirates and the Pittsburgh Steelers shared Three Rivers Stadium together. And obviously, PNC Park is the new home of the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is a beautiful, beautiful ballpark. I highly recommend you guys check it out if you were ever in Western Pennsylvania. And then Heinz Field, as I still call it, even though it's Acusure, but I refuse to call it that, is also a fantastic stadium, which I've also been privileged to be able to go to in my time as a sports fan. So with that being said, we're going to move on to this week's trivia question. That is, what MLB team shared a city in the same name in the NFL from the year 1960 to 1987? You need to name both teams. One of them is not located in the city anymore, but maintains the same name. So this might be a longer worded question. But basically what I'm asking is, there were 2 teams that shared the same name. One of them, or same name and same city. One of them was there from 1960 to 1987. It is an MLB and NFL team, 2 different sports. Those are your hints. You have a whole week to think about it. No Googling. This is a fun one. This one actually took me a while to think of. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to be at 35 minutes. We're about 34 and a half. I'm ready to say goodbye for the week. So next week will be the American League East. Which teams are we going to be discussing? We might preview that now to pocket. I think I'm going to make you guys wait a little bit. Jason will be on the show when we get on to the Yankees. We got 5 teams to choose from. Which ones we're going to go through, I'll probably announce on Out of Pocket here Friday or Monday, this coming Friday, this coming Monday. So that will be next week. Overall, guys, make sure to tune into everything. Boom Broadcasting is amazing. I'm so happy that I have an outlet to talk about something I care about so much. Make sure to tune into Quick Hits. Make sure to tune into Out of Pocket, which I was just on. Make sure to tune into 3 from Deep. We got an NFL show with the aforementioned Jason. And then we got Sideline Savants, which I need a lot of help in fantasy football, guys. This has been the worst fantasy football year for me ever. I have a losing record in all 3 of my main leagues. Not a great look for me. One of the worst I've ever had. So I need to listen to Jason and Wayne. And finally, tune into the Gridiron Address between the 4:00 games and Sunday Night Football. I'm basically a co-host on there, is what Aaron calls me, even though I refuse to say that I am. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for tuning in. Have a fantastic week and stay warm. Care for one another. Thank you for tuning in.